Hey, gadget groupies! This review has been a long time coming. I can't think of another time in recent smartphone history where a manufacturer kept consumers waiting almost 2 years for a follow up to their flagship phone line. 20 months! That's how long the Nokia Lumia Icon has been the top official offering here in the United States, and we shouldn't ignore how quickly Verizon discontinued that phone from their lineup. Expectations were exceedingly high for the Lumia 950. Windows Phone fans have been in a holding pattern as Microsoft worked first on their Windows 10 laptop and tablet strategy. After using the 950 for almost a month now, one would doubt that the Lumia line is getting anywhere near the amount of attention from Microsoft that the Surface line has received. Walking around the hardware, we have a very traditional Lumia layout. The right-hand side has the top-mounted volume rocker, center-mounted power button, and the bottom two-stage camera shutter button. I prefer this layout to the button arrangement found on the 950 XL, as these buttons feel better separated for tactile feedback than with the power button interrupting the volume rocker. There's nothing on the left-hand side of the phone. The top of the phone has the 3.5mm headset jack, and the bottom of the phone is where you'll find the new USB Type-C connector. It's kinda rad to begin playing with this connector, though there was a bit of a culture shock as I'm so heavily well accessorized with micro USB. Just the things you take for granted like a car charger or memory card reader. It's the port of the future though, so I'm not nervous investing in new accessories. Happily, Type-C enables true blue USB OTG support on Lumias. Connecting a flash drive or memory card reader worked flawlessly. The phone was able to power a USB mic, but Windows 10 does not recognize USB audio devices as of this review. The front face holds a beautiful 5.2-inch Quad HD AMOLED clear black display. I've been a longtime fan of this screen tech, and it holds up very well here. Vibrant colors, inky blacks. It's very responsive to changing light conditions, and while it doesn't quite match the outdoor brightness of Samsung's Galaxy S6 Active, it'll wreck most of the LCD screens out on the market. Controls are software-based on screen, with only the main calling microphone located on the chin bezel. The forehead has a loud and satisfying earpiece for phone calls, a new 5-megapixel front-facing camera capable of shooting up to 2208 by 1242 resolution video, not quite Quad HD. We have a separate vlog showing off the video quality, and spoiler alert, this is remarkably improved over previous Lumias and absolutely shames the output from phones like the iPhone 6s. It's almost Samsung good. Off to the right, we also have a red glowing circle, which is home to the iris scanner powering Windows Hello. We'll talk about that more in just a bit. The top rear of the phone holds the fantastic 20-megapixel PureView camera triple LED flash and the rear firing speaker. We also have a standalone speaker test video where you can hear audio playback and, spoiler alert, it's good, but certainly not the most impressive performer we've heard on this benchmark. The back can be popped off, granting you access to the 3000 mAh battery SIM card slot, and this is where you can add a memory card to augment the 950's 32 gigabytes of built-in storage. As for design, this thing is dull. Exactly what many of us were afraid of when Microsoft took over Nokia's hardware division. The first official flagship from Microsoft feels woefully out of step with the rest of the industry. We've seen incredible strides from LG, Motorola, and Samsung over the last 2 years to develop more of a brand style and hardware identity. The iPhone is a lifestyle brand. Hell, it even comes in pink now. While Nokia championed colors and modern design, Microsoft has distilled out all of that uniqueness and delivered the blandest phone of the year. This removable polycarb shell feels identical to low-cost offerings like the Lumia 640. Showing the phone off to friends, many assumed it was built to compete against entry-level phones like the Idol 3. By the way, it lost most style showdowns to the Alcatel in my non-scientific surveying. There's just none of the care or attention that you might find on a Surface Pro. I'm not particularly impressed by the argument many have lobbed that buying a $50 Mozo back is the appropriate response. I shouldn't have to dress up a $600 phone. Now, I'm happy you can, but this shouldn't be the solution. Nokia phones always brought something interesting to the table out of the box. Moving over to software, Windows 10 is another fresh start for Microsoft in terms of UI, refining a lot of what I liked about Windows Phone 8. The metaphor works really well on paper. The phone's home screen mimics the start menu on larger display versions of Windows. Long pressing on a live tile allows you to reorganize them and create folders. It remains the most elegant solution for packing as much at-a-glance information onto one screen as you possibly can. Sliding to the right delivers the same app list that PCs have. After using Windows 10 on a desktop and a laptop, it's very familiar territory and a nice little bit of design synergy. We're still transitioning out of Windows 8 though, and I can't say I love employing elements like top corner-mounted hamburger menus. Controls up here are bothersome on a 4.7-inch iPhone screen. They're frustrating on anything larger, forcing the user to dance the phone around on fingertips when trying to use the thing one-handed. Many apps still retain the 3 dots menu located at the bottom of the screen, which just feels nicer as your hand is already positioned for chin-mounted controls. Why have a hamburger menu take up this much space in File Explorer when most of your controls are already located in the bottom 3-dot menu? Browser, 3-dot menu. Photo apps, tabs, and 3-dot menu. Weather, why bother with this 3-dot menu? There's only one option here. Design inconsistency like this makes you feel like you're always looking for a setting or control instead of just using the app. As for reaching that hamburger menu, Microsoft's solution is to screen shrink in the same obnoxious way the iPhone does. Hold down the Windows key and the top of the screen pulls halfway towards the bottom. It makes it easier to reach the top of the screen, but it still doesn't address width for those that might have issues reaching across the phone. Can we all agree that this is just a plain dumb fix for one-handed use, that a full screen shrink a la LG or Samsung would be preferable? Saying our final goodbyes to Internet Explorer, Edge has been working really well for me. It's a great little browser and can often help fill in for some of the app gap. No Google Plus or Google Voice apps? Just fire up the web versions and pin them to your start screen. It takes a little longer to load and scrolling isn't quite as smooth, but I'm rarely left in the lurch on key services. Recent updates to cloud settings also brings Microsoft up to speed against browsers like Chrome and Firefox. Your favorites and reading lists will now follow you from platform to platform, which is very helpful for keeping web content organized.
Hey, Cortana.
Cortana retains her plucky personality.
The next time I'm in Burbank, remind me to buy beer.
She still is genuinely my favorite personal assistant to use. Microsoft moved quickly on contact and location-based commands, and while Google Now has made up a lot of ground, I still like the way that Cortana handles casual commands. The settings in Cortana's notebook are pretty comprehensive, allowing you to tailor-fit the experience to your particular favorites. And like the Edge browser, her notes on you will travel from platform to platform. Overall system performance has been trickier to judge. Windows Phone 8 quickly developed a reputation for slick performance with far less hardware overhead than Android. In dealing with early builds and the first couple updates from Microsoft, I can't say that reputation remains. The Lumia 950 is packing the same Qualcomm 808 series processor as phones like the LG G4 and V10. Sliding around the UI, opening apps, multitasking, I'd be hard-pressed to find much of any performance advantage here over Android competitors. Happily, I wouldn't say Windows Phone has fallen behind equivalent Android hardware, but it doesn't seem to have maintained its performance efficiency lead. When everything is clicking, it's a snappy, quick phone. With all of the time Microsoft took in releasing this OS after the desktop version, there are still a number of glaring performance issues which certainly color the perception of how this phone works. This was fine on preview builds running on older phones, but this is a consumer-facing purchasable phone. This isn't supposed to be a beta. After running the first major update, performance improved significantly, and thankfully I haven't encountered any of the camera gremlins that other reviewers have encountered, but I'm still finding inconsistencies and lockups with the App Store, especially when updating apps. Right now, Windows 10 is still in a shape where I expect at least one reboot per day to keep things running smooth. Biometric security is hot right now. Many phones are coming with fingerprint scanners for phone locking and banking applications. The 950 is taking a different approach for phone security by including an iris scanner. Once set up, the phone scans your face, looks for your eyes, and uses that info to unlock the device. It works faster and more reliably than previous face scanning systems we've played with on Android, and it's more secure in that you can't unlock the phone with a picture of my face. It does require you to hold the phone up to your face though, and the 950 will prompt when you're not close enough for it to get a good scan. Also, since it relies on your eyes, it won't work with sunglasses on. In bright Southern California sun, going for a pin is often faster than pulling the phone up to your face and removing your sunglasses. Though in climates where you have to wear gloves during cold seasons, Windows Hello offers a distinct advantage over fingerprint scanners, which can sometimes be confused by cold digits. Talking about audio, previous Lumias led the industry in offering up high-quality audio solutions, class-leading headphone amps. In the 2 years since we've had a new Lumia flagship, though, Samsung has improved their audio playback significantly, and LG recently made some significant headway by including a high-quality digital-to-analog converter in the V10. To my ears, the 950 continues a track record of offering up a punchy playback style with a fairly flat EQ. There seems to be a little more manipulation of lows and highs than on the 930 or 1520, but it doesn't come at the expense of mids. It's a pleasant overall listening style. When compared to other flagships, though, this headphone jack doesn't seem to have caught up with the improvements made to competing devices. Using our speaker playback test files and analyzing the output, the 950 is overall approximately 5 decibels quieter than the LG V10 with a 6 decibel louder noise floor at maximum volume. This is a pretty significant margin when compared to other phones like the One M9, iPhone 6s, and Galaxy Note 5. Each of those phones are within 2 decibels of each other with similar noise floors. Quieter playback and a lower signal-to-noise ratio push the 950 out of the top tier of headphone audio. It's still very good, but it doesn't quite compete with the best flagship phones on the market. Happily, I've still been able to count on top-tier radios. I've not had any issues with signal reception or data speeds on AT&T LTE. Our neighborhood has received some fairly decent upgrades over the last year, and the 950 had no issues connecting around town. Call quality is very good, and if I'm reading the field test results correctly, we're seeing about a 2 to 3 decibel lead over the LG V10, putting it right in line with Samsung's radio management hardware this year. But of course, we can't talk about a Lumia without discussing the camera. We have the most comprehensive camera review of the Lumia 950 available online, linked below this review, and the 950 continues to offer up fantastic optics and a formidable sensor. Not a lot has changed in terms of the camera app though. We still have the same slick interface for manipulating settings. Sliding the shutter key will display individual controls for shutter speed, manual focus, white balance, and exposure compensation. On the video side, we have UHD video at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 60 frames per second, both of which are fantastic, though the slow motion 120 frame per second 720p falls far behind what Apple and Google are doing on the iPhone and Nexus 6P respectively. The problem with this camera software, your manual settings are often interrupted by very aggressive JPEG processing. Even when manually inputting shutter and ISO, the app might deliver almost 2 stops of brightening when finishing the compressed image. And color is handled in a similar fashion. As the Lumia app tries to produce the most pleasing image it can, saturation and white balance is often adjusted to produce warm, juicy colors which might not actually reflect the scene you're shooting. Like this pine cone, this is a very pleasing image, but the colors here are a lot warmer than they should be for winter light, where the LG V10 allows us to get closer to what this scene really looked like. This might be an issue with Microsoft's rich capture mode, which is what they call their HDR solution. Currently, you only have 2 options for rich capture: off and auto. There's no way to force a proper multiple exposure HDR shot unless you also have the flash on. It seems the camera is defaulting to a juicy, saturated, contrasty image under all shooting conditions, as normal shots and air quote rich capture shots are practically indistinguishable from each other. When you do fire the flash with rich capture though, we get a really slick option to adjust the lighting of the image after the moment has been captured. You can dial in exactly the amount of flash you want to use. Now, as you're often throwing the flash in dimmer conditions, this is still a multiple exposure setup. You're still going to have issues with motion blur, but if you're subject to staying relatively still, you can achieve some pretty stellar results. And having 3 LEDs on the back of the phone provides an advantage over single LED shooters like the V10. It's not quite a 3-to-1 boost in terms of brightness, more like a 2-to-1 jump with more natural lighting. The V10 has to hold the shutter open longer and pulse the LED longer to match the same brightness, while also washing your subject in unnatural whiter light. The hope here is that the overly aggressive image processing can be reined in somewhat, as we really do have one of the most gorgeous combinations of sensor and lens found on any phone. However you might feel about Zeiss branding, the glass on this camera is sharp as a tack and free of any aberrations. Look at the light streaks from this street lamp. We see almost perfect symmetrical rays of light, as compared to the warped streaks from the V10. Image clarity is fantastic, and pixel level detail will satisfy even the most obnoxious pixel peeper, but I just don't completely trust the image output from this camera. For now, I'm shooting in RAW and editing that RAW file on another device to share. Adobe Lightroom on Android, for example, works really well for editing Lumia RAW photos. Of course, reviewing the 950 comes with the challenge of also reviewing a desktop computing interface. Continuum expands the role of your phone, overlapping mobile devices with desktops in a similar way to how the Surface Pro blurs the line between tablet and laptop. It has some incredible potential for getting work done while traveling. I found it very handy for getting some articles and blog posts written, even though web browser performance can be frustratingly slow. Though, like the rest of the Windows Phone platform, we're waiting on developers to produce universal apps to actually take advantage of Continuum's potential, as traditional desktop programs can't be installed on this kind of mobile hardware. We have a separate video with a full in-depth look at Continuum and the Microsoft dock linked below this review. As with performance, battery life was another concern in moving to Windows 10. Again, I don't believe we see the efficiency advantages we used to enjoy on older Lumias, but with a 3000 mAh battery built into the 950 and paired with the Qualcomm 808, we do get all-day runtime. I couldn't hypermile the phone to 2 days, but it didn't leave me in the lurch for a single busy day of use. Running our video test, 30 minutes of HD video over Wi-Fi, resulted in 10% battery draw, not one of the better performers we've run through this benchmark. In addition to wireless charging, quick charging is available. From completely depleted, the phone hit 42% charge after a half hour. 1 hour on a charger should well exceed the 80% estimate Microsoft delivered. While it's snappy to top off, the phone did run really warm while connected to the charger, and there is no option to keep the phone off while charging. Windows phones will always boot once connected to a power source. So where's that leave us with the Microsoft Lumia 950? I have a lot of conflicting emotions here. I've been a big fan of Microsoft's strategies over the last couple years. I caught a ton of angry comments from my early support of Windows 8, and I was a big fan of the Lumia 1520 and 930. I've been anxious about this release for a while, no small part for how long it's taken this phone to actually get here. I guess it's just difficult not getting frustrated at the stop-start nature of Windows Phone releases. Windows Phone 7 felt fresh after Windows Mobile 6, but it was a complete dead end. Windows Phone 8 promised to fix that, providing a better codebase for app developers and updates, but then we got a 2-year hiatus on flagship phones. Whenever we start building some momentum, it feels like Microsoft dumps a cold bucket of water on that progress because the version of Windows they really want us to use is right around the corner. Microsoft says the Lumia 950 is built for Windows Phone fans. And happily, for the most part, we have a device that can satisfy those folks who are still on board Live Tiles and Cortana. I just wouldn't blame anyone for having jumped ship before this phone was released. I feel like the Lumia brand is being devalued here, and that the 950 represents a placeholder until Microsoft can deliver the phone they really want us to use. Continued grumblings and rumors surrounding a Surface phone might answer why this Lumia is so plain. I'm personally still on board Microsoft's One OS to rule them all plan. There are some really elegant smartphone ideas on display here, and I'm really excited to be checking in on this phone over the next year. But for general consumers, I worry about recommending this generation of Windows phones. They still feel like experiments, and as they're priced to compete against more finished solutions from competitors, I won't feel particularly confident until we see a few more updates, a few more developers get on board, and plans for future hardware revisions, hopefully not keeping us in the lurch another 2 years. Microsoft is selling Windows Phone on the promise of what's to come, and there is a ton of potential. But I get nervous as there's no guarantee those promises will be fulfilled during the life cycle of this device. Now, I hate using phrases like wait and see, but unless you know this phone will handle your specific workload, you'll probably want to wait and see. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more reviews like these, and I would not be able to continue producing on this channel if you all weren't out there supporting it by shopping via my affiliate links below every video or by buying my book. Take Better Photos, Smartphone Photography for Noobs is now available on Amazon to help you take your smartphone photo game up a notch. Of course, sharing my videos on your favorite social sites like Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and the Reddit is always greatly appreciated. Hit that thumbs up button, and I will catch you all on the next review.